So how do I study multiple lectures simultaneously? Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Archer. I'm a third year medical student, and today we're going to be doing a 9K Q&A. I needed some excuse to do this Q&A, so we're just going to call it the 9K Q&A. So since our last Q&A, which went pretty well, you guys seem to like it quite a lot, I thought it'd be great to get back to some of the questions that you guys have been submitting through on Instagram, and there's a lot more of you now, which is awesome to see. So let's take a look. I can't find this. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how stressful was year 12 for me? I'm gonna be honest, my year 12 experience was very, very different from most people. I was doing university topics, which meant I usually wasn't at school and my attendance was pretty poor. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I also had done basically most of my year 12 subjects in year 11 already. So I had a lot to back me up, and I kind of went through the experience before. So I would only really say that it was around a 6. Yeah, probably 6. Now that I've been in med school for a few years, it's really not that stressful at the moment. It will once we get near the ends of our degree, but a lot of the struggle is just getting into medicine. Now, the other thing as well to mention is that isn't the hardest part. Getting into a specialty program is way harder than getting into medicine, so just keep that in mind. How tall am I? Well, take a guess. You know, this is how tall I am. What do you guess? I'm 5'10", I think. My least favorite subject in school was one of my best performing subjects, which was English. I'm more of a maths and physics guy, and now I'm doing medicine. One of the very popular questions that I get on this channel is, how am I so hardworking? Often my family, my friends are always saying that I'm working until I'm at a social event, but essentially everything is done in my calendar and I live off of that. I really enjoy what I do and how I spend my time working on things that I'm passionate about, so it doesn't necessarily feel like work all of the time to me. And so I'm able to keep that up for a very, very long time, just because I know that what I'm doing is impactful, it's meaningful, and I derive a lot of joy from it. Now, one of the things that I mentioned on one of my old videos was that studying was my lowest priority. And it still is. I'm very fortunate now that I've gotten good at study to a degree where I can make it my least and lowest priority, so that I can focus on other things that I find more fulfilling and more enjoyable. So if you haven't watched that video, I recommend checking it out over here. One of my biggest pieces of advice when you really don't feel like doing something is just committing to some of the smaller steps that you can just to get started. And you can always go back to procrastinating and whatever you were doing before, but just getting a little bit done is gonna train you to get better at that whole process. Often I do find myself just lying on the floor. And so the smallest action for me is to just sit up. And that would be one of the things that I might do. One of the things that is also embedded within neuroscience, which I find very interesting, is that you kind of want to get some exercise or some movement going before you try and focus on something, because this will release some adrenaline, and adrenaline is what keeps you alert and focused, and that will be useful to a degree when you're trying to get some study done. Obviously you don't want too much, but you definitely don't want to be super relaxed when you're trying to study. What is a study method or tip that I swear by? The study tip that I swear by is to constantly upskill yourself. It's not really a study technique, but if you're always trying to improve yourself, basically 1% every day, then that's gonna really help you in learning the best study techniques that you actually need. And this adds on to a lot of the things that I wanna start talking about more as well, is about building businesses and companies. So tips for starting a company: make sure that you find something that you care about and that you think you can make an impact about, and you know a lot of that sort of stuff, and kind of build the skills in that area. You know, learn things like sales and marketing, negotiation, how to get good at tech. All these things are gonna really help. And if you're trying to start a business, then you do need to be an all-rounder at a lot of skills. And so, you know, entrepreneurship is definitely not for everyone, but the pursuit of it just teaches you so much that is so useful for life in general. One thing that I've really taken to light this year is about taking a step back. You know, some of my earlier videos, I'm just like working immense amounts. And I've kind of learned that there is a limit now that I personally have. I've reached that, almost burnt out. When I was just teaching students literally like for 14 hours a day straight for a whole week. And I've realized that's not necessarily something that I want to keep up long term. So this year it's about taking a step back and taking more control of my time. I said this in one of my previous videos, but the thing that I'm looking forward to this year is to finally go to the snow. I made a Q&A like this time last year, and I wasn't able to go to the snow because of COVID. So I really hope that doesn't happen this time again. And I am so excited. So how do I study multiple lectures simultaneously? One of the main things that underlies this is syntopical reading, which you can search up and learn about. But basically the idea is that I'm looking at multiple sources of information about very similar ideas at the same time and kind of combining that together, considering how all these things relate together, what are the most important takeaways, and then moving on with that. The most important thing here is that I'm making sure that I'm thinking about things at large and how everything fits into this bigger picture. Let's say we're learning about the kidneys, how all of this is related to the functioning or the lack thereof kidneys. What for me, when I went and did creative writing, especially in year 12 as well, I would basically just look at poetry all of the time and find lots of poetry talking about similar things that I wanted to talk about. I'm not a fan of poetry, but poetry, has a lot of good stuff in it that you can use for your creative writing. What subjects did I do in high school? Here it is. What study technique should I use for my test? What study technique should I use for my exam? What study technique I should use for life? My favorite food probably has to be Indian or Italian. I love butter chicken. Oh, here's one that I really like talking about. Any Google Calendar tips, especially sticking to the schedule? My tips are make sure that you have proper events in your calendar, the things you have to rock up to, class or like dinner or birthday parties. Put all the non-negotiables in there. Also put a time aside for travel, because that's also time that you have to kind of stick to. Otherwise, like you can't put something over travel. And then I like using time blocks, but I'm not a fan so much of putting tasks into your calendar. That's kind of micromanaging things too much. And then personally for me, people will book into my calendar. So if I don't have something saying I'm busy, then I am going to get double booked. But one of the most important things with having a productivity system is to have everything in one place that you can depend on the system. If you put some stuff in that calendar and some in another calendar that's like physical, you're gonna rely and then depend on the one that's easiest to use. And that means that you'll probably stop using Google Calendar perhaps. So you need to fully commit to one application when you do choose to go with one. And as well, if you are using something like Google Calendar, you need to make the friction like really small. For me, if I'm on my lock screen, I can just swipe and see my calendar literally straight away. So that makes the friction absolutely zero. My best advice for people in year 10 or anyone in general is to make sure that you have liked this video if you haven't already. But in general, that the thing that I always say is learn how to learn. And if you're not yet subscribed, make sure you do click that. To maintain a social life in school is mostly just down to the fact of, making sure that you're not studying too much so that you can make time for things that are important, like socializing. So in my list of priorities, I'm often prioritizing upskilling myself, then things like building relationships and having experiences, rest, and then studying. One of the rules that I stand by all of the time is that things are way more in your control than you may think initially. And this is one of the biases that we have. So, you can put yourself in a much better position if you're developing certain skills all the time. And that means prioritizing your future self. So a lot of the time when I'm doing things, I'm thinking about working for my future version of myself. And if my future self would be proud and happy with the work that I've been doing today. This is a great question, which is what are my goals for this year? Now, this year is the first year that I've really prioritized this. Instead of just writing some things down, I literally took a retreat, a 2-day weekend retreat with my best friends to kind of figure out what are the 3 most meaningful goals that I can have this year to work towards. And those 3 things turned into a minimum of 3 days of exercise a week. Sometimes things get really busy and I don't even do that, which is really bad. And that's the minimum. I'm always trying to do more. And then the second one is to upload a video each week to YouTube and do 1 newsletter. I'm slacking a little bit on the newsletter thing, but trying to get that back up. And then lastly is to bring on 5 new students for coaching each month. Now, this being posted in March, we are looking for just a few more students to join coaching, and I'm super excited to bring on more people. It has been so awesome to get students wins like this and actually, help them along that journey. And so this is really just about helping people in every way through mentoring and coaching to actually achieve the grades that they deserve, whether it be for ATAR or university or anything like that. So our coaches are working very closely with students and putting in all of their effort to achieve the results that they are able to get, which is just absolutely amazing to see. And that has been one of the highlights of this year. So if you want to get involved with that, then you do have to be quick because we're getting a lot of messages, and you can do that just by sending me a DM on Instagram saying ready. So I hope this video was useful. And if you do have any more questions, feel free to drop them down in the comment box and I'll try and get to the ones that I can. But until the next one, I'll see you guys later. Bye.